Meet the man that went from the number 2 hotel to a hotel in last place and all the way to the number 1 hotel in the Americas in just over a year in one of the most unorthodox ways possible. Managing partner of Hospitality MD, Allison, takes us on his amazing journey of getting to the number 1 hotel in the Americas on this episode of The Hotel Insider. This episode is brought to you by Hotel Guest Management. 95% of revenue managers are doing this wrong and they don't even know it. Revenue management is more than just looking at reports and setting rates. What's the point of setting a rate just to put it on an OTA website to compete with a bunch of other hotels? The purpose of using an OTA is to give them the leftovers, not the main course, which is why your hotel needs revenue management marketing. With revenue management marketing, you'll be able to beat the OTAs to the punch by providing your hotel's rates right at your customer's door on all their favorite platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Google, Instagram, and TikTok. It works so well, the OTAs are starting to use the strategy. You'll see it time and time again all over social media. There's only one problem: they can't do it better than us. See if revenue management is something that can benefit your hotel. Click the link below and book your discovery appointment. Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. It's Bruce Jordan at MJF Hotels, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of MJF Hotels. And you know who we got here with me, Hospitality MD. We got Allison. What's going on, Cal?
Bruce, thanks so much for having me again. Thank you so much for visiting me in Reading at the number 1 Doubletree in the brand and at my home, because I live here.
You know, I can't believe that I'm at the number 1 Doubletree. Like, the product here is ridiculous. The staff, the level of customer service, and everything about this hotel is just incredible. All I hear is just guests walking around saying, "Oh, you know, I can't wait to come back. Everyone is here. It's great." Like, this is the feedback that I'm getting in the hallway when guests are talking to each other. And that's what you want. So, I mean, you've been here for, how long have you been here now?
Since October, so at the time of this recording, about 5 months.
Nice. Now, was that culture here, like, when you first got here? Or?
Yeah, this culture has been in place since the opening of the hotel. And it's improved since then, from what I've heard. Obviously, with any new property, you have your hiccups as you stabilize, but the culture has always been good. We've always had great leadership, and that's been nothing but prevalent in the history of the hotel and in my experience now having been here.
Yeah. Now you frequent with Hilton hotels quite a bit. Like, that's like pretty much your whole entire background.
Yeah, pretty much my entire career has been with Hilton. I did work at a corporate managed Marriott product at one point, but I learned after doing that I actually really prefer the Hilton brand.
Nice. Not like, compared to all the other Hiltons that you've been at, what's the difference? Well, why? What's the difference between this particular Hilton and your other Hilton locations that you worked at?
So I'm very fortunate to have had a unique experiences coming here that allow me to appreciate this hotel. The reason I discovered this hotel was because I was actually working at the number 2 ranked Doubletree by Hilton hotel. So the discovery was, who the hell keeps beating us and getting ranked number 1? We're in downtown Chicago. We're a 27-story glass tower. We have the best food and beverage concepts here. And then what is going on at the time, I thought it was Reading, Pennsylvania. I didn't even know what Reading was. So, what's going on in Reading that's taking us out and putting us in number 2 in Chicago. So I had that experience. So I know what number 1 looks like now. I know what number 2 looks like. And then also I know what the bottom ranked global Embassy Suites product in the system looks like as well. So I know the bottom of the barrel, the top, and then the number 2. So I guess I'll start with, what's the difference between number 1 and number 2, right?
Yeah, because I guess you took the right approach. If you can't beat them, join them.
That's right.
That's number 1.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, to be number two is hard, right? You have to have a great product, which we had. You have to have great service, which we had. You have to have pros who are working in the hotel who are skilled at their disciplines and know what they're doing to make it happen. Because for people who don't know, Hilton ranks their hotels based on a few metrics. So one of those metrics would be Hilton survey scores through Medallia, called SALT, Satisfaction and Loyalty Tracking. So guests receive scores, and the weighted average of those scores in certain areas like overall service and overall experience, overall cleanliness, so on and so forth, that is taken into consideration. So the guest feedback is important. Number two, your Hilton brand quality assurance assessment is important. So at the end of the day, it is a Hilton property. So if the guests love you, but you're not following any of the brand standards, you're not eligible to be. Well, you're not eligible to be a Hilton hotel at that point, but you're also not eligible to be in the number one hotel or ranked at that level. So guest feedback, Hilton quality assurance assessment score, along with your market share and your RevPAR index and your star report. So are you running a hotel that's doing better than your competitors in your market? So how could you be number one in the brand if you're not even number one, let alone number two in your comp set, right? So all those factors are taken into consideration with the Hilton rankings. So like I was saying, with number two, with the performing brands, you have to have good service, good product, pros doing a good job at their disciplines. You got to have a good director of sales. You got to have a good chef, and we had that at the number two Doubletree in Chicago. We had all that, but what we also had at that hotel was a general manager who walked in the morning, put his head down as he walked through the lobby. If he was confronted with somebody that he couldn't ignore, he might wave. And just do one of these and just kind of nod and smile as he walked by. If he did join the team for lunch in the break room, he would isolate himself in the corner of the cafeteria and just, I don't know if he would read or just kind of stare off into space. And then at 4:30 in the afternoon, he would take the back exit stairwell out the side door, so he didn't have to see anybody. And the rest of the day, he was in his office.
It's difficult to run a hotel in an office. It's just not. I know some people that can do it, and they're successful at it, but it's just not my style of management. It's because I need to see what my guest is experiencing.
Well, absolutely, and at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's. If you're a good leader, you don't have to do much because your team is doing things for you, which I agree with. However, there's a difference here, and I'll explain. So if you're living in your office, but your team is doing great, we're number two Doubletree. We're making $23 million a year. Our product is well maintained. We have good people in the right positions. There's a good culture. We had a good culture at that hotel. A pretty good one, but we had this leader at the top who didn't talk to the guests, wasn't seen, was out of touch with reality to a certain extent. I'm sure he did great dealing with ownership, but there's more to that when you're at the top of your hotel than just emailing the owners or getting on a phone call with the bank. That's just part of the job. Juxtaposed to what we have here at the number one. So that's number two. We have everything: great product, great service, great food, great people in the right place. Distant leadership. Executive top of the organization leadership. Juxtaposed to what we have here, which is great service, great people,
Mm-hmm.
great food, great product, all that, but we have a leader who takes time with people and cares about people, whether that's the guests, the employees, the vendors, the community. Um, Craig Poole, the president of the company, who actually just inspirationally enough, for most of you guys who know, and maybe some who don't, you have to be approved by your brand to manage the hotel, to be your own management company. You have to be brand approved, because Hilton or Marriott, for that matter, they don't want just anybody saying we're a management company, we have an LLC, and now we're going to run this hotel with our infrastructure. They vet you for your human resources infrastructure. They vet you for your accounting infrastructure. They vet you for your leadership competencies, and basically everything. And you have to apply and go through a process. So when this hotel was first developed, it was actually managed by one of the other guys, just an average run-of-the-mill management company. And keep in mind, this hotel is $67 million, located in what was recently the poorest city in the United States of America. So you have a $67 million luxury asset in this community.
That is not luxurious.
So right. So it's
not like a Chicago or like where you have everything going on and the hustle and bustle, and you got the airport and international airport. You got so much going on in Chicago, and this is definitely not Chicago.
It's just a tertiary market at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's Reading, Pennsylvania. There's some business. There are some demand generators in the area, but it's not. A lot of people would say, and they did when the hotel was being proposed and developed, that this project isn't feasible. All the smartest people in the room said this isn't gonna work, and so did the management company who had this hotel originally when it first opened. They were not believers in this property, and they were running it, but they were brand approved, so you had to go through the process. So Craig was the GM. So he was the GM who had to be supported and through politics because of the brand by this third party management company. So what did he do? He said, our goal is to be entrepreneurs, is to be our own management company, and we're going to get brand approved. So he went to work applying and using his leadership and the track record of him and his team at other properties and in business to get the approval to be managed. So then I believe it was about a year after the hotel opened, the Doubletree by Hilton in Reading became operated by this new management company called Reading Hospitality Management LLC, with Craig Poole now being the president of the company.
Nice.
And this was big because now they didn't have any red tape or corporate bureaucracy to go through. So the culture now was even stronger because they had this huge win. As a team, we are now the owners, the managers, the management company. We are everything for our property, which a lot of people do not have.
Now, speaking of properties, like you said before, you got to experience both sides. How was things when, because you were at another hotel before,
Right.
and that property was the lowest ranking?
Yes. So this was an Embassy Suites by Hilton product in North Carolina. And Embassy Suites is a smaller brand, so they actually rank those hotels globally. There's 148, if I remember correctly, Embassy Suites globally in the brand, and this hotel was ranked 148 out of 148 in the brand, like dead last, like not an exaggeration, dead last.
So you go from the number 2 Doubletree to the bottom of the barrel,
Right.
Embassy Suites.
Right. So the reason I did that was because people say, why would you go there? And in retrospect, there were things that I should have done a lot differently in going through that process of taking the job, and also, things that I could have done better while I was there, of course. But the reason why I wanted to do it in the first place is because I was actually inspired by Craig Poole. His background before this hotel is Craig's first new build property in probably since the 80s.
Okay.
In the 80s, Craig actually developed some of the first Hampton Inn hotels in the United States, and now that brand has over 2,500 hotels globally, and he kind of pioneered that. And those were his developments and new builds in the 80s. Since then, he had done bankruptcies, foreclosures, turnarounds.
That's pretty much my market.
Right. So that's what he'd been doing. So I thought, well, I'm really inspired by this guy. Let me see if I could do the same. So I actually went and started seeking out owners, and I met one who I discovered owned the worst Embassy Suites in the brand. So we went through this process, and we were talking, and he said, "Why don't you be the GM of this hotel?" And I said, "Sure." So I actually showed up to that hotel sight unseen. I never checked out the hotel before. The first time I saw the hotel was when I was moving in to live and work in the hotel. And I had left my life in Chicago. My lease was over in a couple months. I paid off the rest of the lease of my apartment that I was renting in Chicago. Purchased a car. I didn't have one when I was living in Chicago. Purchased a car. Basically got rid of, donated, sold all my furniture and stuff that I had, and basically packed just my clothes and some other stuff of what could fit inside of a Toyota Corolla hatchback. That was my life, was in that car, and drove from Chicago to North Carolina, moved into the hotel sight unseen, seeing the worst hotel in the brand for the first time. In retrospect, I probably would have done more vetting on the property itself and actually gone there. But I was and technically still am young and ambitious, and I just wanted to do it and take on the challenge. And I don't regret doing what I did. I just would have been more careful next time.
It was like Richard Branson, screw it, let's do it.
Right, that's right. I just was like, I don't have anything tying me down. Why the hell not? Let's do it. And I learned a lot while I was there. But when you have ownership, is critical in this equation, as you know, and as a lot of the listeners know.
Absolutely.
When the owners don't care, that's a problem. When the owners have allowed it to be neglected. A few weeks ago, actually, Craig and I were talking, and he said to me, there's a few things that I've said to owners when I go in and I'm going to fix their hotels to set the expectation. And I wish I would have known this before I went, because I would have said it to them. But number one, you're going to have to spend at least $1 million just because you did everything wrong for so long. Your judgment day has come. You're going to have to prepare to spend at least $1 million. If you're not prepared to spend at least $1 million, it's probably not going to work, and you're not going to be happy with the results. And number two, I can't listen to you now, and I can't do what you say because you've already allowed it to get this bad. So basically setting the expectation of don't think that just because I work for you that I work for you. And you can tell me what to do. And then number two, be prepared to cough up some money and for the things that I tell you to spend it on. Now, you can't just do that to most hotel owners. You got to have a long track record, good reputation, and some big balls to say those things. But if you're somebody like Craig who has a reputation, you can demand those sort of things. So with that being said, my situation was the owners were still in control of the property. And obviously I'm no perfect angel, but I think it would have been a little bit more successful had there been a little bit of less of a tighter grip on ownership who would let the hotel get to the point that it did.
From my experience with owners, I tell this to owners all the time. Do you do your own change? Do you change your own brakes? Do you know how to do it? I say, no, I don't know how to change my brakes. I don't know how to do my own oil change. I don't know how to do my alternator or whatever the case may be. I'm like, great. Owning a car doesn't make you a mechanic. Owning a hotel doesn't make you a hotel manager.
Well said. Yeah.
It's very simple, because the reason why this hotel is more than likely the way it's where it's at is because you let it get this far. So there's no way you're going to take 2 years or 1 year or 5 years worth of neglect and turn it around in 2 days.
Right.
It just doesn't happen that way.
And a lot of the times, as you know, and we actually talked about this on when I had you on my show, the topic of the show is how to turn around a failing hotel.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was critical that you mentioned was the culture has to change, the people have to change. And a lot of times that means firing people, hiring new people, fixing broken people who are good that are still there, and helping them to come back and bounce back from the failure that they're in. But all of that has to do with culture. And that's something that that you've implemented, that Craig has implemented at hotels, that he's fixed. And that could be the difference between last and first, but that's also the difference between number 2 and number 1 as well. It's just how deep is the culture, how positive is the culture, how meaningful is the culture. It could be really, really horrible culture that makes you the worst, and it could be a really awesome, great culture that makes you number 2, but is it like a profound and life-changing culture? That's what makes you number 1. And that's what we have here.
I agree. When I visit my properties that I manage, even though the gym is on site, like the first 2 hours of the day, I'm in housekeeping. I'm at the breakfast area. I'm stripping sheets. I'm shampooing carpets, and the housekeepers and the staff, they're like, "Who is this guy?" And in the gym, like, that's the owner of the management company. It's like, why the hell is this guy over here stripping sheets and doing laundry and stuff like that? And they'll say, because he has to be the standard that he sets. So if he's not too big in his britches to do all the rest of the work, neither should you be.
Right. And what is that doing? That's establishing a culture of we all pitch in, we all work, nobody's too good for anything around here. And what you hope is that it gets to the point where they love you so much that they won't let you do that anymore.
Yeah.
So eventually, at first you start out doing it, and then it gets to the point where, no, don't worry, I got this. Don't worry. Don't. What are you doing stripping those sheets? We got it. We're going to take care of it. And that's when you know you have a great culture.
Absolutely.
And like you mentioned, the guests here, you hear the chatter in the hallways. I'm so glad that you're here to see this on a very busy weekend.
Whew.
Right? Tell everybody, man.
Word, man. I came up in here and I'm like, what is going on up in here? It's the 40-40 club over here. Just people everywhere, all over the place. Like every meeting room full, the whole hotel full, the restaurant full, the bar full. Like everything's just full. I never seen so many people in such a small town. So I just couldn't believe it. Where are all these people coming from?
Well, they're coming from near and far, in part to experience this hotel. Really, true, and that's not an exaggeration. Like I mentioned, we do have some demand generators, like a arena across the street that hosts minor league hockey games, which are popular for people, and also concerts. We have a theater a few blocks away that we do shuttles to have people enjoy the artists and performers that are hosted at the theater. So there are some demand generators. But for example, our catering here in the hotel, even the room that we're sitting in right now, which is a small room, boardroom style, a little bit bigger than a boardroom, we couldn't do our interview last night because every square foot of space was being used for catering. And those are people who are coming from a certain radius around the hotel who are coming into downtown Reading. The only reason is because they want our food, they want our service, they want our culture, they want our level of detail when it comes to the sales and planning process for catering. And you just don't get that. So people are driving further and coming into downtown Reading, which they would have never done before this hotel was here, just to see us and just to get to know us and just to eat our food and see what we do best. Craig always says you want to do it so well that people come back and they bring other people to show them how well that you're doing it. And that's one reason why you're here, because I wanted to invite you here because I knew that you'd appreciate what we're doing here at the hotel.
Absolutely. Kick ass for sure. Man, so I mean, after everything you've been through and everything you did, why not just say, I'm just gonna go be general manager at another fellow hotel, and I'm just gonna get another fellow hotel a shot? What made you decide, you know what? This fellow hotel thing is overrated. I'm gonna go to the number one hotel.
So, I think maybe I will go to another failing hotel at some point, but I don't know if I was ready to do it yet. And there was something that Craig told me has really stuck with me, and it's important to me now that I know this. He's been doing this for a long time. I haven't. He's 73 years old, 72, and he's been doing this for over 50 years. He said in the 1970s, a rooms guy would never be a GM. Somebody who has a rooms concentration would never become a hotel GM. The order of procession was the director of food and beverage becomes a GM, or the director of sales becomes the GM. Rooms. So in the 70s, rooms people becoming GMs, absolutely unheard of. And now what do we see today in 2022? Rooms people becoming GMs, rooms people becoming GMs.
Like the norm.
It's the norm. It really is. But then you look at the JW Marriotts, you look at the St. Regis, you look at those type of hotels. Who were the GMs of those hotels? Director of food and beverage, director of sales and marketing. You look at the 1,000-room big box hotels, director of sales, who became the GM. So there's still some of that in that standard that Craig was talking about from the 70s that take place at the very, very high-end, minutia percentile of hotels in this country.
Yeah.
But the majority of us have a rooms background and we become a GM. And that doesn't mean that we can't be good GMs doing that. And that's what Craig said. He's like, doesn't mean you can't be a good GM. He's just like, in my world that I came from, it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So he said to me, he's like, you understand laundry, you understand housekeeping, you understand front office, you understand reservations and revenue. But what you don't understand is food and beverage, and what you don't understand is the sales process and sales of being a hotel salesperson. And so, for example, when I was at the Embassy Suites, my first day that I got there was actually the first day of a salesperson who was starting. We start on the same exact day, new salesperson. And this salesperson had no experience in sales.
How did that happen?
Well, people hire for attitude, and, she was a lovely person, and she actually recently got promoted to senior sales manager, so she has to be doing a great job now. But you come in, you got the worst hotel in the brand, and you have a salesperson starting new, doesn't know anything about sales. And then you have me as a GM. Since I've never lived sales in a hotel, I've never breathed it, I've never been in it, I didn't have the chops to effectively guide and manage.
Her position.
And it's not like I needed to, you don't need to get that specific, like, oh, I have a group rooms sales manager and I have a catering manager, I have this. So you have to do all those sales jobs before you can manage them. That's not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing is that you have to feel it, live it, breathe it, and be in the environment of sales to really be able to effectively manage a salesperson, especially one with no experience. If you get one with no experience and you're managing them and you don't know it, then both of you are going to be lost. If you get somebody with experience and you don't have experience, you're going to let them manage you because you're trusting that they know what they're doing, and that may not always be the case, or you trust that their best interests are with the hotel or with what you want, and you may not know it. So maybe if you don't have the sales background, you may not even know what you want in terms of a mix of sales. And as we know now, who you let into your hotel is extremely important.
Absolutely.
So that was one reason why I came here. I said, let me humble myself, let me take a step back. And, Craig said this to me about, and we would have never put anybody in rooms as a GM. So, okay, come here and I'm going to teach you sales and I'm going to teach you food and beverage so you can be a good full service GM. Because
food and beverage is no joke.
And you saw our food and beverage operations here. I mean, it is absolute top-notch, highest of the high, best of the best food and beverage operations you can get.
I've seen a lot of GMs, they will leave a full-service hotel just to go work for, limited service like a Hampton Inn or a Holiday Inn Express, just because they don't want to deal with F&B anymore. There's just so many controls that have to be in place, to get the operation flowing and going. And it's a lot of work.
So one thing that I saw recently, this was a director of food and beverage on LinkedIn from the Middle East somewhere, who's probably working at a 1,500 room or, quite frankly, 15,000 room with some of these hotels that they're building in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And he just had this little blurb. It was like a 15 or 30-second video on LinkedIn, and he said, director of rooms, you buy the shampoo, it never expires. You buy the toiletries for the room, they never go bad. They can sit in a closet. The budget tells you how much you can order and the occupancy flex and you order it and it's done. When you're a director of food and beverage or you're in the F&B world, you order lobster and you have 2 days before it goes bad and it turns. And you have to sell a lot more burgers to make $200 than you do selling rooms.
Yeah.
So it's challenging for profitability. It's challenging to be in control of food and beverage, and that's your heartbeat and pulse of a full service hotel. As you saw yesterday, imagine yesterday and eradicating food and beverage from the picture. The place would have been dead, right?
That's right.
It would have just been everybody isolated up in their rooms doing nothing.
Oh no, you get rid of food, don't get rid of beverage.
Right. Right.
They want to drink, you gotta be able to drink. Yeah, so people want to drink. You gotta have something to drink.
People want to drink, and we had the 2 bars actually, the lobby bar that we activated to accommodate for the demand, which is normally we don't always have that there. So we had the bar, we had the lobby bar, and we were still full. I mean, that's where the heart, that's where the action, that's where the life was really kind of was coming from. And Craig really understands this, and that's one of the reasons why we're so successful here is because of our food and beverage. So in a long roundabout way, why wouldn't you just go and try another hotel and be a GM somewhere else? Because I need to understand sales and food and beverage. So that's what I'm coming here to do. I'm living in the hotel, I'm working in the hotel, and I'm viewing it as like a Green Beret boot camp for full service hotel leadership. So that's why.
Okay. And so what do you recommend for everyone that's at the bottom and they're trying to make their way to the top, trying to make their way to number one, like Doubletree here?
I would say the most important thing you can do is to spend time with people. One of the things that, as I was mentioning earlier, at the number 2 Doubletree, we had a GM who refused to even spend as much time as a 1 second hello and a smile to people. Here, we have meetings every morning that oftentimes it's commonplace that these meetings, these stand-up meetings, are 2 hours long.
Wow.
You ever heard of a 2-hour stand-up?
No. Usually with the stand-up, we're just trying to get to know what we need to do.
Right.
Make sure everybody's on the same page, and then we can go do what we need to do at work.
Yep. So very transactional, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing today? Yeah, I'm rotating mattresses today. Okay, what are you doing today? Yeah, I'm just going through and FIFOing the walk-in. What are you doing today? Oh, I'm reaching out to guests, let them know that the parking garage is broken and you have to enter it on the other side. Like, okay, that's what you're doing today. Yeah, we know that everybody's got stuff to do, so we don't approach it in that transactional way. And we do tell people what we're doing, but that's not the reason for the meeting. The reason for the meeting is to align ourselves with the strategy, to talk about our failures, talk about our successes, talk about our lives, talk about our guests, each other, the revenue. We're a very, very revenue-focused hotel. That's another thing. So this time that we're spending, we're not talking about, I would distinctly remember this Omicron variant was starting, and we were starting to see business drop off as a result.
What never happened on Omicron? Did they finish invading the planet? Like, it was like, man, Omicron, and then you don't even hear about it anymore.
Well, the way that it was last night and today, Omicron apparently isn't here anymore, which is great. And business is starting to come back. But in December, January-ish, when that was happening, it was impacting business. And I remember we all sat down for a meeting, and Craig goes, we need to come up with creative ways to generate revenue. We're not going to lay anybody off. We have 220 employees for a 209-room hotel.
Wow.
So for those of you who are in the hotel business, that's just insane. You don't have that.
Yeah, you usually have about half of that.
Right. Exactly. You don't have one employee per room, let alone more than one employee per room. So he said, we're not laying anybody off. We need to come up with ways to generate revenue. So what other conversations did everybody else have? We need to cost cut. We need to cut labor, cut expenses. We're cutting costs, cut. We were revenue-focused people. Mm-hmm. There's only two ways to drive your bottom line and be profitable, and that's either through revenue or cost cutting, and we don't cost cut here.
So did you like an NFT on this picture right here?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. Anybody wants to make a JPEG of that? But that's what we do. We're revenue-focused people, and I think that's another thing when, especially kind of relating it back to the failing hotels. And you know this better than anybody because you're all about revenue yourself. You go into buildings that buy cheap products for their guests. They don't want to replace things. And that's why Craig will say you need to spend $1 million for everything you did wrong and all the stuff that you ignored. You'll never have a successful hotel if you have mold remediation that you've been ignoring for years and you just keep covering up and the wallpaper's peeling off and you can see mold and all this stuff. It'll never happen. You'll never be an award-winning hotel if you have paper-thin towels and linens in the rooms that you can see through it because you don't want to invest in some linens. You'll never have it. If you have breakfast that's a prepackaged carton of milk and a muffin inside of a brown bag, you'll never have it. I mean, our breakfast here, just for an example, tell the people what our breakfast was like.
It's very rare to actually see different varieties of meat. Like, it wasn't just all bacon. It was like you had chicken sausage, you had pork sausage, you had bacon, you had pancakes. It was like 2 types of eggs, and hash browns. It was like a pepper salad where you could add to your eggs and all the cereals and muffins and bagels and
roasted vegetables.
Yeah, roasted vegetables. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That was roasted vegetables, not assortment of peppers. So it was like that. That was really good. So I was just surprised, and then the design, of course, it's hands down. It's amazing. But I couldn't believe it that you had all of this and it was included in the rate. So I'm like, what the hell? This is going to eat your life.
Well, and for full service hotels, anybody watching you who's full service, you don't have free breakfast. You charge for it, right? That's what somebody said somewhere. The smartest person said, you don't give away the breakfast for free, you charge for it. And so what do we do here? We give people the breakfast for free. Now I remember I came here and I told Bruce this off the record, but I'll tell you guys, I said to Craig, wow, this is just like, I was like, this is crazy because in my world we charge for breakfast.
That's right.
And this is the life that I thought everybody had. So I was shocked and I asked Craig, what's your cost per occupied room for breakfast? And he said, doesn't matter. My rate is $40 higher than everybody else. And that was like a moment where I was like, okay, you're right. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what your cost per occupied room is. If you're dominating the market, if you're charging way more money, if you have value, people will pay $40 more to stay at your hotel than they will at another property. And then they'll come back and bring more people who want to pay more money. Then they'll come back and instead of paying $40 more than everybody else, they'll pay $60 more than everybody else.
Listen, you told me like 2 times breakfast is included, and I'm asking. I finished eating breakfast. I'm asking for the check. I'm like, hey, I'm ready for the check. And they're like, no, it's included. I'm like, damn, that's right, it's included.
Because it was just that.
It was that good. It was that good.
Right, and it was a buffet, and we also had people serving you. We hire people to pour coffee for you.
Yeah.
Like we have staff. I mean, it's. We have today we had 3 hostesses on for the breakfast. For free breakfast, we had 3 hostesses working. Who the hell does that?
No one. Sit where you want to sit and go grab your meal. That's where it usually works. But for a free breakfast anyway, you know.
Right, we have a whole food and beverage breakfast experience where you get greeted when you come down the elevator. Somebody asks you, what you'd like to drink. They walk you, they sit you down, they explain where the breakfast is. So the hostess does that. Then you have people coming over, serving you, pouring your coffee, clearing your table for you. And you get to help yourself to a wide variety of different foods and made to order omelets as well. And this is another Craigism that I'll share with everybody, which is he says running a hotel is easy. You just have to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing.
That's right. That's right.
So what is everybody else doing? No staff to greet you when you come downstairs. A pitiful breakfast in a brown bag. Or if you're a full service, charging for breakfast, it's not even half as good as what we serve here. And still no servers. You're doing everything yourself and you're still getting charged. So he says, well, let's just do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Now we're more profitable. We're making more money than everybody else.
It's easier to sell.
We're busier than everybody else. For sales, it's easier to sell this to people. So we're not focused on, what is the Expedia guest going to think about this?
Yeah.
We're focused on what is the higher rated business travel person going to say that we can negotiate this rate with them. What is this association group business going to say? So when you shift your mindset to who's your customer, who do you want in the hotel, and how can we cater to them? How can we make it easier on our salespeople? And how can we make a great experience? You will be successful, but if the owners don't want it, it won't happen. And I think we can agree on that.
You know, speaking of the owners, I just read this quote, and I experienced this with a lot of all owners, no matter who you are. The way it goes is only a fool will hire a smart person and tell them what to do. Like, you don't need a smart person, you just need a robot. You know? You're just gonna tell them what to do. Like, why are you even hiring a smart person? Right? You can get someone from preschool and do that. You know, so I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're just grateful that we have the staff that we do, we have the culture that we do, we have the revenue that we do, and I'm glad that you got to see it. More importantly,
for sure. Man, how did everybody get in contact with you?
Guys, follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content of what we have going on around the hotel. Also follow Craig on LinkedIn as well. He's the man behind this product, and you should definitely look him up, Craig Poole. You can also find my media YouTube channel, Hospitality MD podcast, YouTube. If you want to see all of our social medias, solo.to/hospitalitymd. Thank you guys. Thank you for having me back on the show. I'd love to be here with you.
And as always, please remember, in order to set the standard, you have to be the standard. Signing out. We'll talk to you soon.